I've always been the quiet one, not shy exactly, just quieter than most. Even as a child, I liked the sound of pages turning more than loud voices. While other girls danced and laughed at parties, I found comfort in corners, books, soft music, long walks. That was me. My sister, Jenna, was the opposite. She could light up a room just by walking in. People noticed her, wanted to be around her. She had a loud, beautiful laugh and a way of making people feel like they belonged. Growing up, people always said we balanced each other out, but sometimes I felt like a shadow beside her, like I only existed in the space she wasn't filling. Still, I loved her. She was my sister, my only sibling. Even when she teased me for being too quiet, too soft, too slow, I never took it to heart, not until later. That day, I was pushing my bike down the road, tired from work and heat and life. The tire had gone flat about a mile from home, and I didn't have the energy to be frustrated. There was a small garage near the corner. I'd passed it a few times, never paid much attention. But that day, I turned in. He was there. Michael, I didn't know his name yet. He was bent over the hood of an old Chevy, grease on his hands, his face calm and focused. He looked up when he heard my bike squeaking. I must have looked like a mess, sweaty, tired, frustrated. But he didn't laugh. He didn't ask questions. He just walked over, knelt by the tire, and started working. We barely spoke. He didn't try to make conversation. When he was done, I tried to hand him a few dollars. He shook his head. "You look like you've had a long day," he said. "Go home. Get some rest." That was it. Just a short moment with a stranger. But as I rode away, something about him stayed with me. Maybe it was the kindness, or the silence, or the way he looked at me, not like I was invisible, but like I was human. I didn't know then that this small moment was the beginning of something greater. I didn't plan to see him again, but I kept thinking about that moment at the garage, how he didn't ask for anything, how he looked at me without judgment, just quiet understanding. A few days passed, then a week, and one afternoon, I found myself riding by that same garage again. Not because I needed help, just because he was there, wiping his hands with a rag, standing in the sunlight. His sleeves were rolled up, his hair a little messy. He saw me before I could pretend I was just passing through. "You didn't break the tire, did you?" he said. His voice was calm, soft, almost teasing. I smiled without meaning to. "No, I wanted to say thank you properly." He nodded. "You're welcome." There was silence, but it didn't feel awkward. It felt natural, like we both understood that words weren't always necessary. I sat on the edge of the sidewalk while he went back to work. He didn't mind. He just kept working, and I watched him in the quiet. Before we continue, I'd truly love to know, where are you watching from? Please let me know in the comments below. It would mean so much to me. After a while, he asked, "You always this quiet?" I shrugged. "Mostly. Is that a bad thing?" He looked at me. Really looked. "No, it's nice." That was all. But it meant something. I started stopping by more often, not every day, just enough. Sometimes I'd bring him coffee. Sometimes we'd talk about nothing, music, the weather, books we liked as kids. Sometimes we'd just sit in silence while he worked and I watched the cars go by. It was slow, uncomplicated, safe. At home, Jenna noticed something. "You've been smiling to yourself lately?" she said one evening, stirring tea. Her voice was light, curious. I shrugged. Maybe I'm just tired. But it wasn't tiredness, it was something warmer, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. I didn't know if he felt the same. I didn't even know if I wanted anything from him yet. But I knew this. Every time I saw Michael, the world felt a little softer. And for someone like me, someone used to staying in the background, that meant everything. Michael was the kind of man you noticed, but not because he tried to be noticed. He stood tall, maybe a little over 6 feet, with broad shoulders and strong arms that always looked like they belonged to someone who worked hard. His hands were rough, but careful, like he could carry heavy things, but would never hold anything too tightly. His hair was dark and always a bit messy, like he ran his fingers through it more than a comb. His skin was golden from the sun, the kind of tan you get from being outside every day, and his eyes, they were a deep brown, the kind that didn't shine, but held something steady inside, like they'd seen things but chose to stay kind anyway. There was something calming about him. He didn't move fast. He didn't talk much. But when he smiled, it reached his eyes. And when he looked at me, I didn't feel invisible anymore. One Saturday, Jenna said she'd come with me into town. She was bored, or maybe curious. I didn't think too much of it. I rode my bike. She drove behind me in her little red car. When we got to the garage, Michael was out front, working on a silver truck. His shirt clung to his back from the heat, and there was grease on his forearm. He wiped his face with a rag, then looked up and smiled when he saw me. "Hey," his voice was low, warm. "This is my sister, Jenna," I said, motioning toward her. She stepped out of her car, all energy and perfume. "Hi," she said, flipping her hair. "Claire didn't tell me you were this cute." Michael gave a small smile. "Nice to meet you," he said, giving her a handshake. Jenna talked a lot, asked questions, laughed loudly. I stood quietly by the wall, watching them. Michael was polite, but not overly friendly. He looked at me more than her. But still, something in me felt small, like I had faded a little next to her brightness. Later that night, back at home, Jenna sat on the couch and grinned. "You never said he looked like that," she teased. I forced a laugh. "Like what?" She raised an eyebrow, "Like someone who should be on a truck commercial." I smiled tightly. "He's just nice." She said, sipping her tea. "Very nice." I didn't say anything after that, but the feeling stayed with me. I had known for years that Jenna could light up any room and get any man. People always noticed her first. That was just how it was. But for once, someone had seen me, and now I wasn't sure if that would last. I started going to the garage more often. Not every day, but enough for it to feel like a part of me now. Sometimes I'd say I needed my brakes checked or the chain oiled, but really, I just wanted to see him, and somehow, he always seemed glad I came. One afternoon, I sat on a low bench while he worked on a car. The radio played softly in the background. There was a breeze coming through the open garage doors. It felt like the world had paused for a moment, just for us. Michael looked up from under the hood and wiped his hands on a rag. "You always sit so still," he said. I smiled. "Is that bad?" He shook his head. "No, just quiet, like you're listening to things most people miss." I didn't know what to say to that, but something in my chest warmed. He noticed me, not just my face, me. I shrugged, trying to play it cool. "Maybe I am." He laughed a little and said, "I like that." I looked at him then, like really looked at him again. His jaw was sharp, with a little stubble. His hair was messy as always, but it suited him, and those eyes steady and kind. Another time, I brought him lemonade I made at home. It was hot that day, and I thought maybe he'd appreciate it. When I handed him the glass, he smiled at me like I'd just given him something special. "Best part of my day," he said, sipping, and I believed him. We started talking more, not about big things, at least not at first. Just life. He told me how he'd started working on cars when he was a teenager, how he liked fixing things because it made him feel useful. I told him about my books, my garden, the quiet parts of me I rarely shared with anyone. He listened, like every word mattered. And slowly he started telling me more, too, about his mom who passed when he was young, about how he stayed in town to look after his little sister, who was away at college now, his dad, who was in another city with his family, about how he never really fit into the loud, fast kind of life everyone seemed to chase. "I like slow," he said one day, eyes on mine. "I like steady." I nodded, heartbeat loud in my ears. "Me too," I said. He looked at me for a long second before going back to work, but something had shifted. The next few visits, I caught small things, like the way he'd brush a loose strand of hair from my face without asking, or how he'd lean a little closer when we talked, his voice softer, how his eyes lingered when I laughed. It was quiet, but it was real. One day, when it started to rain suddenly, I ran into the garage breathless, soaked from the short ride. Michael looked up, took one look at me, and grabbed a towel from the back. "You're gonna catch a cold," he said, wrapping it around my shoulders gently. His hands brushed my arms, warm against my cold skin. I froze, but not from the rain. His voice dropped. "You shouldn't ride in this kind of weather." I looked up at him. "Maybe I just wanted to see you." He held my gaze for a moment, and then he smiled, a little softer than usual. "I'm always here. I am glad you came," he said. On the weekend of that same week, Michael texted me saying, "I'll be at the garage tomorrow if you want to come by. I'll grab something for us to eat. No pressure. Just thought it'd be nice." I stared at the message for a while, smiling quietly to myself. There was something about the way he said it, simple, open, but thoughtful. The next day, I walked over around noon. The sun was out and the streets were warm and quiet. His garage door was half open, letting in light that stretched across the concrete floor. Inside, it smelled like oil, metal, and something warm, pizza. He'd already picked up a box from the diner down the road and 2 cans of soda. It made me feel seen, like he'd thought this through. Michael looked up as I stepped in. "Hey," he said with a soft smile. "Right on time." He wore a black t-shirt that clung gently to his back and broad chest. His jeans had grease stains near the knees, and his boots were worn but sturdy. His arms looked strong, veined and dusted with little bits of dirt, and his brown eyes carried that same calm I always noticed. Steady, kind. "I got pepperoni," he said, opening the box. "Hope that's okay." "It's perfect," I replied, and I meant it. We sat on an old bench inside the garage. It wasn't fancy, but it felt real. We talked about nothing and everything. Music, work, the way people change. He listened like no one else did, and he spoke softly like he didn't want to break the quiet we'd found. "You're easy to be around," he said at one point. It wasn't flirty, it was honest, and it made something warm bloom in my chest. But then, "Hello!" A loud voice echoed from outside. It was Jenna. She walked in with a 6-pack of beer swinging in her hand like a trophy. Her hair was curled and styled, makeup done like she was headed for a night out, not a quiet afternoon in a garage. Her eyes landed on me. "Oh, Claire, didn't know you'd be here too," she said, surprised but pretending not to be. Then she looked at Michael. "Hope I'm not crashing anything." "I invited Claire," Michael said simply. Jenna laughed. "Relax. I just figured you'd be alone, and I brought drinks." She hopped up on the edge of the table, crossing her long legs in her tiny denim shorts. Her red top hugged her body tightly, and her voice filled every quiet corner of the room. She opened a beer and leaned toward Michael as she spoke, touching his arm more than once. She tossed her hair, laughed louder than necessary, and made a few teasing comments she thought were funny. Michael didn't laugh. He answered her yes, but his eyes kept drifting toward me. "Claire, you okay?" he asked at one point. I nodded, smiling faintly, but I felt out of place, like a guest in a conversation I wasn't part of anymore. Jenna raised her beer toward him. "To new energy," she said. He didn't raise his, he just looked at me. That's when I stood up. "I think I should head out," I said softly. Michael reacted immediately. "You don't have to go." Jenna scoffed lightly. "Oh, please." But Michael was already taking a step toward me. "It's really okay. Thanks for the pizza and the company," I said gently. Michael looked torn, but I didn't wait. I just smiled and walked out. The sunlight hit me as I stepped into the open air, but inside me, something felt colder. Nothing dramatic had happened. No words were said that couldn't be explained away. But I felt it. Something had shifted, and I wasn't sure how to name it yet. The next morning, I woke up feeling heavy. My heart still carried the weight of yesterday. The image of Jenna leaning against Michael's workbench, laughing loudly like she owned the space, stayed with me longer than I wanted. I reached for my phone, expecting silence, but there it was. A second message from Michael. "Hey Claire, I hope you slept okay. I'd really like to see you today if you're up for it. Let me know." I read it slowly, letting each word settle. He didn't ignore what happened. He didn't pretend I hadn't left early, and he didn't give up. That meant something. I stood in front of the mirror, brushing my hair back into a simple ponytail. No makeup, just lip balm and a clean white t-shirt. It felt like me. I didn't know what to expect, but my heart beat faster anyway. When I got to the garage, it was quiet. The sun was beginning to lower in the sky, softening the heat into something gentler. Michael was already outside, sitting on a wooden bench near the side wall, under a tree that offered a little shade. He stood up as soon as he saw me, and he smiled. God, that smile, warm, easy, like he'd been waiting all day to see me. "Hey," he said. "Hi." "I got your favorite," he said, lifting a brown paper bag and a drink holder. "Chicken salad sandwich, no onions, and iced tea with lemon." I blinked. "I didn't even remember telling you that." "You mentioned it last week," he said a little shyly. I remembered. I sat down beside him. The wood creaked softly under us. We unwrapped the sandwiches and ate in quiet for a few minutes. There was no pressure to fill the silence. It was comfortable, even peaceful. After a while, he turned slightly toward me. "I'm sorry about yesterday. I didn't invite her. She just showed up. I didn't expect you to leave so soon," he said, voice low. I swallowed. I didn't want to make it awkward. "You didn't," he said. "She did." I looked at him, and for a moment neither of us said anything. He looked down at his hands. They were rough from work, but gentle in how they moved. "I like talking to you, Claire. I like the way you see things. You make this place feel different, better." I didn't know what to say. My chest ached in the softest way. After we finished eating, we took a slow walk around the block. He didn't rush me. He didn't try too hard. He was just there with me. He said he wanted to get to know me better. I smiled, 'cause I also wanted that more than anything. Days later, Michael asked me out on a date. He sent a simple message. "Can I take you out this weekend? Just you and me. A real date." My heart skipped. I said yes. That Saturday he picked me up. He looked different. Clean shirt, fresh haircut, a soft smile that made my chest flutter. We went to a quiet Italian place, nothing fancy, but it felt special. Over dinner, we laughed, talked about childhood, music, dreams. He listened like every word mattered. At one point, he reached for my hand. "I lie round you, Claire. You make things feel easy, real." I smiled. My heart felt full. When he dropped me off, he held my hand for a moment longer and said, "Let's do this again." And I knew something beautiful was starting. It was late afternoon. I was in the kitchen making tea when I noticed Jenna's phone left unattended on the living room table. Normally, I wouldn't touch it, but something made me glance at the screen. There it was, a message from Jenna to Michael. Flirty words and teasing. My heart stopped. I sank into the chair, my hands shaking. How long had this been going on? How many times had Jenna tried to get Michael's attention behind my back? I didn't want to believe it, but the messages were clear. I found her in the kitchen, casually pouring herself a glass of juice like nothing had happened. My chest was tight, my hands cold. "Jenna," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "can we talk?" She didn't even look surprised, just raised an eyebrow and leaned against the counter. "About what?" I swallowed hard. "About you and Michael," I said. She gave a small laugh, like she found it all amusing. "What about it?" "You knew I liked him. You knew we were getting close," I said, my voice breaking slightly. Jenna sighed, annoyed. "Claire, it's not that deep. He's not your boyfriend yet." I stared at her, trying to understand. Why would you even go there? You can have anyone, Jenna, anyone. Why him? She rolled her eyes. Exactly. I can have anyone. I was just curious, I guess. Wanted to see if I could. I blinked, stunned. So it was just some kind of game to you? I mean, she shrugged, totally unbothered. He's not even all that, to be honest. Not as hot as I thought. A little too soft for my taste. That hurt more than I expected. Not because of what she said about Michael, but how easily she dismissed all of it. Like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. I trusted you. You're my sister, I said quietly. She looked at me, finally meeting my eyes. Claire, don't be so dramatic. You're always so sensitive, she said rudely. I felt the tears coming, but I held them in. You crossed a line and you didn't even care. She shook her head. Whatever, you can have him. I'm done. And then she walked out, just like that. No apology, no guilt, just done. I stood there in the kitchen, staring at the glass she left on the counter. Everything suddenly felt unfamiliar. The house, my sister, even myself. She didn't just betray me. She shattered something I didn't know could break. Later that evening, I met Michael at the garage. I had barely stepped in when he noticed the look on my face. He dropped the cloth in his hand and walked toward me, concern in his eyes. Claire, what's wrong? I didn't speak at first. I just looked at him, searching his face for anything. Guilt, confusion, regret. But all I saw was that same steady calm that had drawn me in from the start. Can I ask you something? I said softly. Of course, he replied. I took a breath. What's been going on with you and Jenna? His expression shifted, not guilty, but uneasy. He rubbed the back of his neck and let out a slow breath. I was hoping you'd never have to ask that, he said, but you deserve the truth. I waited, heart pounding. She started texting me out of nowhere. I honestly don't even know how she got my number. The first time I thought maybe she just wanted to ask something casual, like about your bike, or maybe a surprise for you. But then she started flirting, making comments, and when I didn't respond the way she wanted, she showed up here, he said. My chest tightened. Why didn't you tell me? I said to him. He looked pained. Because I didn't want to put you in the middle of something that could hurt you. I knew it would come between you two. And you speak so kindly about your sister, I didn't want to be the reason that changed. I looked down, blinking fast. I should have told you I'm sorry, he said quietly. I looked up at him. Did anything ever happen between you two? He stepped closer, shaking his head. No, not even close. Claire, I never wanted her. I didn't even want to be alone with her. I like you. Being around you, talking with you, it feels right. It's you I want in my life. My heart cracked open at his words. Tears welled in my eyes, but they weren't from pain this time. Just the overwhelming relief of being seen, being chosen. I believe you, but all of this, it hurts, I whispered. He took my hands in his. Then let's get through it, together. Even though Jenna still lived under the same roof, I chose to hold on to what Michael and I had. I knew the healing wouldn't be easy. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't facing it alone. I never thought my own sister would be the one to break my heart. It still stings, not just because of what she did, but because I trusted her. We grew up side by side, and yet in one moment she chose to hurt me without a second thought. But in the middle of that pain, there was Michael. He didn't run, he didn't hide, he stood beside me, steady, honest, and kind. And even though everything around me felt uncertain, his presence brought a quiet comfort I didn't know I needed. I didn't choose to stay with him because I was trying to prove a point. I stayed because, with him, my heart felt seen, safe, and maybe that's how healing begins. Not all at once, but in the small spaces where love shows up and doesn't leave. If you've ever been hurt by someone close, I hope you remember this. You're allowed to choose peace. You're allowed to hold on to the love that makes you feel whole. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and comment. And don't forget to share this video with someone who might like it. Thank you.